we're not doing too hot today. I did something that I've never done in like how many, like what, the 13 years that I've been straightening my hair. I clamped my ear in my straightener. Yikes. So the top of my ear is a little sensitive, so I'm not gonna do a zoom in on it, because one of my friends, I was Snapchatting one of my friends and telling her, and she was like, your ear looks crispy, and I was like, that's because it is. Anyways, that was a fun way to start off my day today, but I have a video here still to give you today. So a couple of weeks back, I did books that I thought I would love and ended up hating, and now I'm going to do books that I thought I would hate but ended up loving. And not all of these that I think I would like legitimately hate, like that's a strong word. Some of them I did, some of them I just really went in with like very low expectations and didn't think that I would like at all, and I ended up loving them. So I'm excited to jump into this video today. I hope you guys are ready to enjoy it. And Nikki and Crystal both did this video. They did like a collab doing this video a couple weeks ago, so I'm going to link both of their videos down below as well, so that way you can check them out as well, because I really enjoyed watching both theirs, and that got me like thinking about books that I also picked up, not expecting to love. But here's the thing, it's kind of tricky because most books that I pick up, I do pick up because I think I'm going to love, because I'm not going to pick something up that I don't think I'm going to like, but there are some here. So let's go ahead and dive in. So first up on this list, I have a book that a lot of you are probably surprised that I ended up liking, as surprised as myself is, and that's Heartless by Elsie. So this is the second book in her Chestnut Springs series, and this one is a small town, single dad, country, nanny romance, and I did not expect to like this book whatsoever, because none of those tropes are something that I actually ever like, but everything in this book worked for me. So this one follows Cade and Willa, and Cade is a single dad. He's working on his ranch, keeping his family's ranch afloat, and he really needs some help with his son. And Willa is one of the heroine's friends from the first book, and she's like, hey, I have this friend who like would be a good nanny for you, whatever, and she ends up working for Cade, and it's their romance. I don't like small town. I don't like country. I don't like any of those kind of vibes, but yet like this, it just all kind of clicked. And I honestly think it was because of these characters' chemistry and their banter. It was top notch. I loved Willa. She was amazing. And I loved like the slow burn of their relationship, and that even though they were boss and nanny, that they kind of took those roles like seriously. Like they didn't just like jump into it with like no angst. Like that angst built up, that tension built up. And I kind of like forgot that I didn't like any of the tropes that were in this book, because I don't even like kids in books normally, but I actually really liked the son in this one. I don't know, overall, this book just completely surprised me. And I liked Flawless. I read that one for a vlog, but everyone was like talking about Heartless, but it kind of felt like I needed to read that one first. You don't, it's a companion, but like I'm a kind of a stickler for reading orders. So that's why I didn't pick this one up right away, but I had finished Where the Mountains Meet the Sea, and I was like, I need something light. And I was like, you know what, screw it, let me give it a go. And if I don't like it, then like I'll just DNF. I ended up loving 5 stars. Next up, and one that I thought I would hate, this one for multiple reasons, mostly because it is a clean romance, and that is Magnolia Parks by Jessa Hastings. So this is not clean in the sense of like it's like YA, or that it feels like fluffy or light. This is still like very drama packed, very angsty. It doesn't feel like clean, but however, there's no like, you know, spice in it, which I don't normally do. Like I just don't normally do that. However, I was convinced to read it because once again, everyone was loving this book, and I read it for that same vlog that I read Flawless for, and this book ended up blowing me away. Also, I feel like the cover, it looked like a children's book at first. I remember Sam sent this in our group chat when she was like, hey, have you guys been seeing this book? And that was the first time that I had seen this, and then I started seeing it everywhere. But I was like, Sam, is that a kid's book? Like, what are you saying to all of us? It's very much not a kid's book. But I ended up loving this book. I didn't make it on my top 10 of last year, or maybe it made my honorable mentions. I loved this, and I was so blown away by it. So this one follows BJ and Magnolia, and it's a second chance angsty romance. There's cheating involved. BJ cheated on Magnolia in their romance, and that's why they are broken up. There are also some other reasons, but they are both really rich, high society kids. So Magnolia's dad is a music producer, very, very famous, so she's very wealthy. And BJ's family, I forget where they come from, money from, like how they have their money, but it's like high London society, kind of like Gossip Girl-esque. They're like always in the tabloids and being talked about, and it's just it's so different than anything that I've ever read. Even like the writing style is very different. So when I first started, I was like a little nervous, because it's like they talk to you a little bit, and it's weird to get used to at first, but once I got into it, I just ended up loving this, and I really did not expect to enjoy it as much as I did, and that I didn't really even miss the spice. I mean, I would have taken it, but I really didn't even miss it, surprisingly. Next up is another one that I was really influenced by everyone around me, that even though I went into it and I was like, I want to love this, I didn't know if I would, because I was very easily influenced by everyone saying that this book sucked. And that is Savage Lover by Sophie Lark. I got this special edition and it's so pretty, so I wanted to show this one off today. But this one is the third book in the Brutal Birthright series, and I heard nothing but bad things about this book. And last year, Cheyenne and I did a Reading Sophie Lark reading vlog, so neither of us had read her before, so we read the first 3 books for that vlog. And I remember we were on the same pace, like we both liked Brutal Prince, we both liked Stolen Air, and then Savage Lover, she was a little bit ahead of me, and she was like, at first she was like, I love it, and then all of a sudden she's like, I hate it. And I was like, no, because Cheyenne and I typically have pretty similar tastes. And then I remember watching Christy's reading vlog like a long time ago, and she also didn't like Savage Lover, and like I just heard that no one liked this one. So I had low expectations going into it. However, when I started reading Brutal Birthright, I was loving Nero. And then I was also loving that it's supposedly like a Dom and Letty energy. I'm like, well, give it to me. And I ended up loving this one. This is my favorite actually out of the Brutal Birthright series. I'm so glad that like I still read it and I didn't let everyone else's opinions influence me, because this just like I don't know. It spoke to me. You know, certain books just have that intangible thing, and this one had it for me. So this one follows Nero and Camille. So Nero is the second son of this one mafia family in Chicago. So obviously, since his older brother is older, he kind of like takes up a little bit more of like the head of the mafia. So Nero just gets to be like a little bit more of a playboy. He races cars, he likes fixing up cars, and he just gets to kind of like do his thing a little bit. And he's like a bad boy, he's like a playboy. And Camille owns and runs a garage with her dad. Her dad is very sick, and she has kind of had to take up the parental role to her brother a little bit, and also take on the shop as well. And her and Nero really bond over their love of cars, and it just becomes like a mutual connection to then like a romance. And I just love, I'm such a sucker for like the guy who like the playboy turned like monogamous man for the one woman in his life, and I just love that. There's also like a heist in this one. There's car racing. I do understand the reason that people don't like it is because it's in a mafia series and there's like very little mafia business. I personally didn't care about that, so I loved it and like looked past that. But I do understand why people wouldn't love it, but I did, and yeah, I already want to do a reread, especially now since I have the special edition. I want to do a reread with it because I just love it so much. Next up is one that I had pretty low expectations of because I was not blown away by the first one when I had higher expectations of that one. So I was just kind of thinking that I wouldn't probably love this one that much, and that's Scarred by Emily McIntyre. So this one is the second book in her Never After series. So the first one, Hooked, I read and it was fine, but like I had seen so much hype about it, and then I read it and I was kind of like, I don't know, like it was fine. I liked it, not my favorite, but I was really interested by Scarred because this one's Lion King and it's royalty, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna give it a second go. So I don't think I thought I would hate this book. I just really didn't think that I would. I just went into it with low expectations, thinking that it would probably be like along the same line as Hooked for me. And I was blown away. I ended up loving this one. So this one follows Sarah, and her father was killed by the crown. So now her uncle has kind of raised her up for revenge, and now she gets engaged to King Michael, and she is basically going to infiltrate their family and kill the line of the crown and like get her revenge. And when she's there and she's like starting to do her plan, she ends up meeting Tristan, who is the brother of Michael, the younger brother. So he's like the spare one, and he also hates his brother. And when him and Sarah first kind of meet, they're both like, Sarah's especially like, you're my enemy, like I'm not supposed to like you. But then when they start kind of getting talking, they're like, maybe we actually have some mutual interests here, and maybe we can kind of team up, and then maybe we can also fall in love. And it's their romance. Like I said, I just had pretty low expectations after Hooked, and I ended up really enjoying this one. I loved the plot, the spice was great, the character development was great, I loved the relationship development. I just like really loved this one, and now it kind of like reinvigorated my interest in the series. So I know Wretched is next. I really want to read that one, and Twisted actually that just came out. I think that's like an Aladdin one. I don't know. I'm such a sucker for Disney retellings. Next up was another one that I did for a reading vlog, and I would just say that I went into it with, again, low expectations. I didn't think that I would hate it. However, I've never read historicals before, but this blew me away. And that also, look at how cute it is. I can just hold it in one hand. It's so adorable. Like, look at how, well, that's not a good example, but like look at how tiny it is compared to Savage Lover. I remember when I got this in the mail, I was like, it's so tiny. So anyways, The Lady Gets Lucky by Joanna Shoup. So last year, Rachel and I did a reading vlog, Rachel from Rachel Reads and Sings, and we each picked some books for each other to read, like some of our favorites. I had never read historical romance before, so she was like, I'm gonna give you 3 historicals, and I gave her 3 like a little more like taboo, forbidden books. And so in that reading vlog, this was by far my favorite. I loved this book. I think was it on my honorable mentions as well last year. So this one follows Kit and Alice, and Kit is like a playboy, I guess. I don't remember like all the historical romance lingo. I know there's like a name for it, but he's like a playboy basically. And Alice is a society lady, and she has been, I don't know if she's been like in the like pool to get courted, but she hasn't yet. And her mom is really pushing for her to get a match, if I'm remembering correctly. And her dad is a little bit more like, just kind of like let Alice do her thing. But Alice is getting worried that she's not really like attracting male attention. So when her and Kit kind of like develop a bit of a friendship, she asks Kit for his help in how to seduce a man. And in return, she's going to give him some cooking lessons because he wants to open up his own like restaurant and needs some help with recipes and such. So they kind of have like a mutually beneficial deal. And obviously, as any sort of like lessons in seduction, not really like fake dating, but like that kind of scenario plays out where it's like, we're just gonna do this. There's no feelings involved. Feelings always get involved, and it's their romance. And it's like the perfect friends to lovers. It was just beautiful and fun, and I love the like historical setting. Obviously, it's just so different to what I read. If you're a historical romance reader, obviously that like love of the different setting probably isn't like as much of a thing for you because you're used to it. But for me, I had never read, or like I said, I have never really read historicals. So it's just like a nice change of pace. I love the characters. It was still hot, which I was not expecting. I didn't expect that level of like heat in a historical. And I was just like blown away. Next up is one that I for sure thought that I was gonna hate. And that is It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. So I read this back in I think at the beginning of 2021 maybe. So I really started reading romance at the tail end of 2019 and into 2020. But I remember when I first started early booktube and I saw a bunch of people recommending Colleen Hoover romances. So I started reading some of them and I was like, I hate it. Like I read not Heartless. I read Hopeless and I read Confess, and I was like, no. So I was like, I'm gonna give her one more go. And I think it was actually Jess that, obviously this is one of her favorite books. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna give this one a go. And I was really not expecting much when I checked it out from the library. I actually almost didn't even read it. I remember I was like, I might just return this, but I ended up reading it and I loved it. This is a 5-star book. This is probably one of my favorites from Colleen Hoover. It just absolutely exceeded my expectations. And then I was like, maybe I just read 2 duds. I found some other ones. Colleen Hoover is very hit or miss for me. I either love her books or I don't like them. I don't really have any that I'm like medium ground with, but this one is a hit for me. So this one follows Lily, and at the beginning, she has just come from her father's funeral where she's just like, she's kind of dealing with her grief, but also like it's a tricky situation with her relationship with her dad and how that grief is kind of playing out. And when she's on the roof one night, she ends up meeting Ryle, who is a doctor, and they kind of hit it off, and they have like a bit of a friendship turned like relationship. And then at the same time that you're in this present, you're also getting past chapters where you see Lily with her first in childhood love, Atlas. And it's a bit of a love triangle. I'm sure everyone knows what this book is about by now because it's so popular. It's everywhere. It's getting a movie. Like everyone kind of knows, but obviously if you don't know anything about this book, definitely recommend looking up triggers for it. And yeah, this was one that this was my last ditch attempt to like Colleen Hoover books. And I'm really glad that I read it because I obviously ended up loving it. I found some other books that I loved after that I would have never given a chance if I wouldn't have read this one. And yeah, definitely a win for me. Next up is another one that I did for a reading vlog. And I did this for my very first Banned, Forbidden, and Taboo reading vlog. And this was back pretty early on. And not only in like my reading journey, but just in like my really taboo reading journey. And it was my first family romance, and that's Forbidden by Tabitha Suzuma. So this is one of my favorite books of all time. And I went in expecting to not like this book because it is between Lachlan and Maya, and they are brother and sister. I know, if you don't want to read it, I'm not telling you that you need to read this book. I'm just saying for me, I went in not expecting to like it, and I ended up loving it. And I genuinely think about this book on a regular basis still to this day, and I read it back in 2020. So this one, Locke and Amaya, so they're brother and sister, and so their mother is a very absentee mother. She does not take care of them at all. She often leaves them without any money. She just leaves them home alone, and they have 3 younger siblings that it's really up to Locke and Amaya then to take care of them. I think they're like 10 months apart. They're like really, really close in age. So they really become kind of like pseudo parents to their 3 younger siblings, while also at the same time just trying to like be kids themselves, grow up, go to school, get good grades, and they're having to worry about so much on top of what they should actually have to be worrying about. And it is just truly a heartbreaking story watching these 2 struggle with the role that they're kind of thrust into by their mom, and then also struggling with kind of starting to look at each other and being like, I'm having feelings for you that I shouldn't be having. And obviously it's just look up your triggers for this book. Obviously, I'm telling you what their relationship is, so yeah, that's definitely not going to be for everyone to read. I didn't think it would be for me either, but this book really does not, like, I don't know, I don't want to say like glamorize it at all, because I don't really feel like any like taboo books that are like this do that, but I guess you just really get into the psychological aspect of these 2 and just see, like, it's not like instantly at the beginning they're like, oh, I'm attracted to each other. It truly is just like you see how life circumstances have like altered their viewpoint of the world and of each other and of like what it means to like be just an individual like within this family dynamic. I don't know. I don't even know how to explain it. It's so heartbreaking. It's so devastating. Yeah. You can see my full thoughts in that video. Honestly, I hate that video so much. I'm like whenever I've looked back on it, it's one of my most like popular videos that I have on my channel, and I just hate it because I'm still living at home. Like it was back during the pandemic, so I was living with my parents, and I'm just like trying to talk about these super taboo books like quietly in my room. It's just like, it's so awkward. I hate it. But you can see me just bawling my eyes out and talking about this book. But yeah. Okay, next one, I didn't bring it out because technically, like, the one that I have on my shelves is not the one that I'm talking about here. And that is Always Been You by QB Tyler. However, it's the novella version of it. So it was in the Twisted Christmas anthology, so I'll probably put that picture up here. So this anthology came out at the tail end of 2021, like in December. Obviously, it was Christmas. They're all Christmas novellas, and there were a few authors in there, QB Tyler included, that I wanted to get this anthology for, so that way I could read these stories. However, I am really not a novella person. I even read any novellas this year. I just don't like how fast they have to move. I love slow burns. I don't love having to like only spend 100 pages with a couple and try to like cram in like the attraction between them. I just don't normally like them. However, I obviously wanted to read the QB Tyler one because I love QB. And I picked this one up, not really expecting anything. It is an adopted sibling romance, so it's between James and Gabrielle. So now it's a fully published version, so like, I don't even think you can find this unless if you have the anthology. So now it's a fully published book, but in this, it was a novella. I don't even know how many pages it was, but it was pretty short and sweet and hot, and I fell in love with it. I don't think I've ever loved a novella as much as I loved this novella. So this one, James and Gabrielle, obviously, so Gabrielle was adopted by James's family when she was like 2, and he was 12, I think there's like a 10-year age gap between them. And obviously as they grew up, they always had a close bond. But then when James went off to school, Gabrielle started to realize like, maybe I have a crush on him, maybe I miss him. And then now that she is a student at a university in New York City, I think, James also lives there, and they kind of get reconnected a little bit and realize that they both maybe have some attraction for each other. So that also carries over into the regular book. Like, if you read the regular book, you're not really missing out on anything from the novella. Like, all this is included in there. It's just expanded upon. I don't know what it was about the novella that just clicked with me. I don't think I've ever given a novella 5 stars. It's not like already existing within a series, you know? Like certain books, like after, like the Sweet Christmas from like Sweet Dandelion, like I gave that 5 stars because like I already know and love those characters. I got a 600-page book building up their relationship. So of course I just want to see them having like a cute little Christmas time together. But these were 2 brand new characters, and for some reason it just worked with my brain. And I loved this. I loved it. So I didn't go into it thinking that I would hate it because obviously like I love QB's writing. I more went into it thinking that it would probably be like mid, like 3 stars. But this, oh honey, ended up being what, my 2nd top book of the year last year. And lastly, okay, this one was a bit of a wild card, but I'm like, I'm gonna throw it in here because it was fun. And that is Den of Vipers by K.A. Knight. So I read this book it was my first ever Why Choose book. It was one of my early Mafia books that I even read. And still to this day, would I ever reread this book? No. All of the other books behind me, I would reread or have reread already. This one I wouldn't. However, I wanted to include it here. So I went into this book with, I'd say, just like no expectations whatsoever. I didn't think I would hate it, but I think because of it being so big and it's an author that I had never read before, and like I said, this was my first ever Why Choose, so I hadn't read anything like in that genre before, so I really didn't even know what to expect. So I didn't go into it thinking like, oh, this is going to be like a 5-star book for me. However, I ended up really enjoying it. It's not a 5-star, it was a 4-star for me, but still, like I said, I needed to include it. So this one follows Roxy. She gets kidnapped by these 4 mafia dudes, which I don't even know why they kidnapped her. Why did they kidnap her? I don't know. But they do, and they keep her in their high-rise penthouse. They're super rich, super bougie. One of them is like icy cold, and he's the main guy, and then he has a brother who's like a gambler and like the funny one, and then they have the batshit insane one, Diesel, who's like more of the no, he's not even the enforcer one. He's just crazy and like loves his knives. And then there's the 4th one who is they're like broody big enforcer guy who like doesn't want to be touched and like can't stand the touch of Roxy. And she starts fighting all of them right from the beginning, but she ends up falling in love with all of them. And it's truly insane. It's an insane book. It's one of the wildest books that I've ever read in my entire life, but I remember just really enjoying it, like having a fun time with it and being really impressed for having like 0 to no expectations for it. So I don't know if I've included this book in a rec video in a long time. I don't even know if I like actively recommend this book. I think it's more like if you just want like a really fun, unbelievable, but like crazy spicy time, this is like right here for you. But would I say it's like the best thing I've ever read? No. But you know, not everything needs to be the best thing you've ever read. Sometimes you just want to read for fun, and this is that book. So anyways, okay, that is the list of books that I thought I would hate but ended up loving. So yeah, that's it for today's video. I don't know what will be up on Friday. I know I keep promising the draft videos. My nephew's birthday is this coming weekend, so I'm going to have his cross stitches done. So this week, I will not obviously have time to edit the book draft video, but I have 2 of them. But once this weekend passes and I get his gift done, we're good. We're squared away. So anyways, that is it for today's video, and I will see you when I see ya.